Hi everyone, and welcome to the very last panel of our Simon Virtual Expo 2021 20th Anniversary Edition. I am Elena. I'm joined today by Michael Shinall and Leo Almeida, both designers of Masters of the Universe Clash for Eternia, hitting Kickstarter in, wow, 3 weeks? 2 weeks?
Yeah, less than 3.
Yep, time is already upon us.
Wow, that's close. Well, how are both of you? Let's start with Leo, whom I haven't seen yet.
Well, I'm very good. I'm actually surprised that Michael, for the first time in a very long time, on Masters of the Universe panel, is not wearing the Skeletor shirt. So that's worth mentioning.
Combo breaker. Yeah. I unfortunately had a bit of bad pre-planning, and I'm not wearing my You're All Fools Skeletor shirt. So I do feel like I have already started this with a disappointment, right?
It can get worse than this.
Yeah, but can't get worse.
Well, it's all uphill from here, I guess.
Wow, now I'm feeling kind of bad now. Okay, wow. Way to start this off great.
We started with the disappointment of non-Skeletor t-shirt. But before we start, as a way for people to join in, can we take our commercial break before we even start?
Wow, we're just starting with immediate commercials. Okay.
Exactly. Well, this is the Simon 20th Anniversary box. It's a pre-sale. It's available right now in our website, and if it sells out during pre-sale, there will not be a sale. So just make sure to check it out. Have you seen this yet, everyone?
No, it is very big.
It is.
That sounds like it's got some really cool stuff inside.
Yes.
What's in it?
Can you see this?
I can.
I can see.
With what do you want to see first? We have stickers. We have pins. Lots of them. We have playing cards.
I love the
playing These are cards. Amazing.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people on the staff are just like playing card junkies and collectors, and those are just some really cool looking art ones and everything, and also casino grade, which I'm also a big fan of. I have a personal thing for good quality card stock and things like that, so I can give you the technical specs for a lot of stuff. 330 GSM, blue core, diamond core, and all that, and all the stuff that probably didn't mean anything to anyone that I just said. But yeah.
Yeah, I love shuffling cards. As soon as I saw this one, good quality cards, I can just shuffle. Usually I keep around my table just a deck that I just keep rifling throughout the day. Yeah.
Are you good at it? Like, can you do those tricks where you shuffle cards?
Nah. Well, yes. I mean, not anything fancy. Not anything fancy, but what I consider fancy at least.
We have coasters. And we have a puzzle, which I'll take from out here because I don't want to disassemble this right now, but also great. So make sure to check it out before Sunday.
Is it random, or do we get to pick once we're buying the puzzle? I think there's one.
It's Blood Rage.
It's all Blood Rage? Oh.
It's all Blood Rage. So this is it. Back from our commercial break.
Let's talk about today's moral lesson. Oh, sorry, that's for the end of the episode.
Exactly.
Right?
Are we wrapping this up already?
Well, no, I'm kidding. But well, Michael, you sure have outdone yourself. I really enjoyed the face mask that I saw you wearing these days, Helena.
Yes.
I guess before one last time, we have to see Helena in our favorite face mask, just because I keep seeing it throughout panels and it's fun every time.
What, this one?
Yes. You know which one.
Yes. This is not in the box, though. This is probably coming later, but this is amazing. In case we are not socially distant enough, make sure to always have a cool mask.
Even when COVID wears off, you should wear this every day.
Yeah, I mean, style is style.
Yeah.
Great for keeping snacks. Everything.
There's multiple usage.
Exactly. I just saw that I made a minor mistake. It's not the Blood Rage puzzle. It's Rising Sun. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, just reaffirming that then, yes, it is the Rising Sun puzzle in the box.
Yep.
There. Fantastic. And yes, the Cthulhu thing is a combination mixture of stylish and practical for all of your face covering needs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so big you can put it in your head, and you can just hide yourself from everyone, so you can social distancing correctly.
Yes.
But so, Helena, if I am correct, today we have a couple little spoilers, not spoilers, but things to go over of Masters of the Universe, just talking from a design and development standpoint. But we're also going to be taking questions from the audience, I believe.
Yes, correct. I'll try to take questions and sprinkle them throughout the panel, so we don't have like a Q&A section. But everyone watching us, please feel free to leave your questions in the comments. I'll be following them and selecting them live while you tell us a little bit more about this project coming up in just under 3 weeks. Masters of the Universe, how long have you been working on this?
Well, I guess the latest I can remember of was Christmas 2019, which we were at the beach, Michael and myself, and we were talking about the possibility of making a He-Man game, and we already got like so excited there that we made most of the initial concept of the game. I believe it was there. It was very memorable.
Fun fact about that trip is that uh, we uh, we were with another friend of ours for Christmas there. I was spending my time with them down in Brazil, so that's why we said the beach. We weren't just like frigidly going to the cold beach, just to give some context there. And they said that, like, oh, Leo is going to be joining us, and I got to be honest, I thought they were messing with me. Because we were there for a week, and then randomly Leo shows up, and I was like, huh. I had completely written this off as being a joke or a prank that was being pulled on me, because it seems like exactly the type of thing they would have done. It's like, oh, expect Leo to show up and then have this big long multi teehee day like joke happening, and then again Leo actually shows up. So I just pretended the entire time of like, yeah, of course he did. I never had any suspicions that he wouldn't. And that led to that was the same period that we got talked about that we were going to be doing Masters of the Universe, and that was 2 years ago almost at this point, from learning about us working on the game and then bringing everything to fruition.
Yeah, you see, Simon is such a big family for us. It's that we spend Christmas together. That's how important we are to each other.
Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't have anything else to really add there.
Well, how was that initial conversation? What did you guys discuss that eventually made its way into the game? Where did it start? Did it start in a mechanic, in a feeling, in a theme? Where?
I guess we knew that we wanted to do the power system. I guess that was like the biggest thing that we envisioned. And the game wasn't exactly how we thought initially, but most of the things were kept. We just changed in order to adapt to the gameplay and the He-Man theme. So,
and that is usually how like games start out. Is you'll have your basic idea for kind of what you want the game to be, and then it's going to evolve over time and everything. But so the important thing was just basically setting up like the theme and just thinking about like well, what do you, when it comes to Masters Universe and He-Man, what type of game do you envision? And then is that the direction we want to go with? Because really the concept, you could have made this game anything, but we decided we wanted to be very much a kind of brawling style, like throw a bunch of dice, have cool moments, and just cinematic style game, versus one. This was coming off of the tail end of Bloodborne for me, which was a very like completely luck removed card based game, and Leo was the lead developer for that, so we were both actually coming off that project. Where that game has completely like we've mitigated all luck. That was completely card based, very strategic. Every every action is a direct result of your choices, and that was not the direction we wanted to go with He-Man, because we knew that this was just kind of a big like cinematic blockbuster style, throw a bunch of dice, slam things against each other. So that was where we first came to. And that was, of course, just talking about mechanics. The other thing as well was going from the fact of, like, as I've said before, I grew up in the time period where He-Man existed, but I was not like a turbo fan of it or anything. I had a couple of the action figures. I watched the show occasionally, but it was not like, my biggest high priority. And Leo here is about, 10 to 15. Oh, jeez. Yes, Leo is 23 years old, so he is about 15 years removed from that period. So it became a matter of just like, becoming educated in the franchise and everything. Because, I would in no way claim that, I was an expert in He-Man just because I happened to be alive during that time period. And Leo's entire experience came from a bunch of internet memes and things from that. But that was the first important thing, was like the second we got back from vacation was getting the He-Man encyclopedia, going and watching the original series, finding all the funny, silly stuff about it, the serious stuff and like some of the comics and everything, like that Dark Orko saga where he annihilates everyone. And just basically educating ourselves on those topics. I mean, like, Leo, what was like the most surprising He-Man / Masters of the Universe like bit of trivia or knowledge that you picked up throughout this whole thing?
Well, some things are very dark. I don't know if I can mention because it's from a character we haven't showed, but it's from this.
If it's from the series, we can talk about it. Just because we talk about something does not mean that it's in the game.
So yeah, Mechanic backstory is very I don't want to get people depressed, but it is very dark, and I got surprised.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things. Like you start by thinking like, oh, it's really lighthearted because a lot of people's experience comes from the Filmation series, which was very lighthearted, and then you start researching like the classics lore or the comic series, or even some of the comics that came in the original packaging with the toys, and it's like, this is a little dark. There's some bad things that happen to people, and
yeah, I mean, you see a TV show that has like moral lessons at the end, and it's very there are no killing. You can only like push robots around, so you get like people having such complex stories. Like he's the balance of the universe together. It is very deep and complex, even though it seems very harmless and thoughtful. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one thing to discuss is when it comes to the different aspects of the board game, is that we are covering all of those areas of Masters of the Universe. We've got some things in the board game that are really silly, but they're endearingly silly, and then we have some aspects that are really like serious. And actually, I think that might be the perfect segue into talking about the model and what we're showing today.
Okay, shall I bring it in?
I believe so. So an example that we have here is that like we're talking about everyone's favorite like kind of berserker guy here, Beastman. And in the show, like he's a comic relief. And a lot of the mediums that you see him in, he's portrayed as just kind of like a bumbling comic relief as well. But then you have some of the source materials that just treat him as an actual serious threat. Like when he managed to take control of Many Faces because Many Faces had a beast persona. And, he's an actual serious threat. And, that was how we wanted to convey him in the game. So today we're actually going to... This is one of Leo's favorite characters here as well. So yes. We're going to go over, like, specifically how he works in the game, talk about some of his skills and abilities, and, how this is all represented.
So this is the set of cards that you get for your character. So each character has its own player side card, which is the top left one. On the bottom, you have the controller side cards and the AI card, which then you can play on the controller side where you gather power used by the players. And on the top right, there's the skills that you upgrade as you go through the game with this player side card. So you have a little like skill tree that you can choose your path in order to make him do certain things, like which we'll get into later. But this is what you get for every single character that you'll have in the game.
So these are all the different modes you can play this character with. Can Correct. You just expand a little bit on the different ways they can be played? I'm not sure if everyone here has watched our other live streams, so
Sure.
So, you want to go, Michael?
I'll take that, and then you can go into
Sure.
the specifics. All right, so in the game, there's basically every character is going to have 3 different versions of their cards. At the very top here, you're going to see the player version. So this is if you're playing as an individual player controlling Beastman, that will be the only character that you're controlling, unless you opt to play more. But usually it's 1 character per player. Each of those characters will have a character card, as you see in the top left, that will have a attack for them, and then a starting skill. In this case, it is Control Beast. In addition to that, they're going to have 3 skill cards that are double-sided of 3 different levels, green, yellow, and red. As the game goes on, you'll unlock these different skill levels, and you'll be choosing between which of those abilities that you want to get as the game progresses. So during the first escalation step, which is what we're calling the step of the game when new skills are gained, Beastman will have a choice between Adrenaline Rush or Survival of the Fittest. Next level, it'll be Pack Leader or Frenzy, and then finally he'll cap out with his ultimate skill, Berserker Rage or Beastmaster. And we'll get into the specifics of those in a moment. At the very bottom here on the left, you'll see the controller card for Beastman. The controller will be, as the namesake says, controlling multiple characters. They don't level up as the game goes on, but they just have a predefined set of skills that they have from the beginning. Usually they're a variation of the player character in some capacity. So as you see here, he's got Claw Slash, which has some extra options to it, and then Control Beast, which is almost the same version as you'll see on the character card. Then on the bottom right, you'll actually see their AI controlled card. This is for if you're playing with the AI rules, basically making the game full co-op, where the controller is played by the AI deck. Every single character has an AI card that has an attack and a skill attached to it. And the AI deck and the scenario that you're playing will dictate what actions they do on their turn. So, yes. Again, every character that we reveal that's in the core box, and we have 6 characters for the Heroic Warriors in the core box and 6 characters for the Evil Warriors in the core box. So 12 characters total in the core box alone, each of them having this basically loadout that you're seeing here.
Yeah, well, this is actually a big reveal. We have mentioned before that we're going to have AI, but we never showed what the actual layout would be, even though we explained a bit. So if you were looking to co-op and solo play, the AI card is how you're going to operate your playing against. And you have a deck of cards which will tell what he does. So he moves and does attack, or he does skill or moves away, things like that. So really, really cool.
So there are, from what I hear, you guys saying 3 or 4 different ways to play the game. You can play 1 versus many. You can play full versus if it's 1 versus 1, correct?
So the way it functions is that it is a 1 versus mini game. You have the team of players versus a single player who is playing as the controller. Then each of the players will usually be controlling 1 character, but let's say if you wanted to just play 1-on-1, the player side could control between 1 and 4 characters. Everything scales actually based on the amount of characters that are being played. So if you're playing with 4 distinct individuals, they can each control 4 characters. If you're playing with 2 players versus the controller, they could each control a single character they want, or they could control 2 characters each if they want, or 3 if you want an odd number there. But there's no restrictions like that. If you're playing just 1-on-1, you can play a single character as the players versus the entire hordes of what is being controlled by the controller character. And in addition to that, that is the standard game mode. And then we have our AI mode, which basically the role of the controller is fully automated via that deck that Leo just talked about. So you could play with you and up to 3 other friends for a total of 4 players versus the AI controller trying to complete different objectives and scenarios. We have special scenarios that are based around just AI play. We have special scenarios that are based around 1 versus many gameplay. Also noting that with the 1 versus many gameplay, each side is interchangeable. So as the players, you could choose to play the Heroic Warriors of He-Man, Man-at-Arms, Tila, and all them, or you could play, as we see here, Beastman, the Evil Warriors. So Beastman, Skeletor, Evil Lyn versus the controller, who will be playing the opposite faction.
Yeah. Or the final one, solo mode.
Yes, that is correct as well, because via the AI rules, you could play yourself versus the game as well. So that's under the umbrella blanket there of players versus AI.
Co-op. Yeah.
But yes, I guess for the
there is solo play. Yes.
Yep. Just to throw out there, yes, full solo play via the AI rules as well.
and it's balanced, as Michael explained earlier. No, regardless of the number of players you're playing, of characters, you can just the amount of actions that you take a turn, and the opposing side is the same. So even if you're playing one character or four, it's balanced ideally. So how we did the game in balance.
Another fun, interesting thing is that when it comes to picking your characters, so as we said before, there are the heroic warriors and the evil warriors. The game recommends that you pick like one of those sides and you don't mix characters, but theoretically there's nothing stopping you from having that scenario where it's let's just draft whatever characters we want and play this little mashup here, because you could theoretically in that case have like Man at Arms, Tila, Beastman, and Skeletor teaming up against He-Man, Ram-Man, Merman, and Ram-Man. You have the blank man opposite team, right? If you wanted. Yep.
Man.
Yep, good old Man.
Well, that's interesting. I did see a question in the comments about that. So yes, I guess the answer is yes. You can mix and match as you want. Ooh.
So I guess let's go into the specifics here. Leo,
Yes.
I guess if you want to jump this off to talk about like the build paths and like
Sure,
cool stuff for Beastman.
I'd love to.
With this right here?
Yeah, so this is, as we previously mentioned, the card on the left is the card that you'll be using if you're playing on the player side, but you'll have your skills later in the game. And on the player side character card, it'll be very simple. He usually has an attack that doesn't cost any power, so he can use even though he already used all his power. And he will have a skill that they'll be able to show his identity. With Beastman, he is usually like a summoner guy. One of the ways that you can play him is that you summon shadow beasts, and you'll be able to use them to like trick the opponent to move differently because of the hexanotable ward, and also to beat them up. So it is a very strong character because he's like a warrior, like berserk warrior type of guy, and also like a summoner which controls multiple shadow beasts. On the controller side, we have to explore that ever since the beginning of the game because you don't have skill cards for the controller. So in there, we already have both abilities, but a little bit like buffed. So in case of Claw Slash, it's like we're getting claws from the basic Beastman card, character card, and just adding up some of the bonuses that he could get as the game goes on in the player side. So the skills. So ideally, the player character side is very simple and it's very like primal stage. But the controller side, since he can't get upgraded throughout the game, he already started the game with some part of the full power that Beastman could have.
It creates a really like interesting play dynamic where as a player character, because you're slowly building your character as the game goes on, there's different build paths, so you can kind of adapt to the situation. Whereas on the controller, you have Beastman and two other characters that you're going to be bringing, because you're always going to be playing three characters. You're playing them much more, I want this type of role based on the scenario we're playing, or just your own personal style. So like, I would take Beastman because I expect a lot of combat, or I want the extra kind of area control aspects that come from being able to summon extra minions in the form of the Shadow Beasts. So I'm basically, it's creating this like gameplay difference between the two of even this early stage, where as the controller, I'm picking my characters based on what I think I will need based on the scenario and what they contribute, versus the player side, which that choice becomes much more of like, how am I going to build this character out as the game goes on based on the shifting state of what objectives I've got to do, or how I've got to play. And also something else I should have mentioned at the beginning before we get too far, but every single aspect that you're seeing here is subject to change before final release, because the game, like we're still going through dev cycles and everything, so like abilities will change, dice might get tweaked. This is basically a snapshot of the game at the time when we were getting ready to launch everything for the Kickstarter. But I mean, like, we can even say like this openly, but like even since then, things have upgraded and changed slightly. Wording has been like refined and whatnot. So just letting everyone know that things are subject to change before final release as we go through the dev cycles of, balancing, proofreading, and all that.
Yeah, you can expect Beastman and Shadow Beasts, but everything that is written in numbers, it's subject to change.
Yep, the identity of every character is not changing, but some of the specifics might.
Yeah. And even, since you touched on that subject, even art and design, I guess, this is all work in progress. We are far from the release of the game, so always keep that in mind.
Every single aspect of the project, is subject to change based on feedback and everything as well. Now, of course, this is a different project than our standard one because of licensing and going through Mattel, but they've been happy with everything we've been doing so far, and they've been fantastic to work with as far as the licensor goes. But yeah, that is just an expectation to keep, is that, everything is subject to change based on, before now in the final product. I mean, that's not the first time it's happened with anything that we released on Kickstarter, and that's one of the points of Kickstarter is, getting fan feedback and things like that, and seeing like, oh man, turns out people really don't like this certain aspect of, what we've done, so maybe we tweak that a little bit if we can, or maybe we can refine this a little bit, because we've had several instances in Kickstarters where we've had some really great ideas come from the community that we've ended up incorporating into the final product. Now, of course, we're not going to drastically make sweeping changes to the game based on people's initial impressions and things like that, because Leo and myself have been working on this project for going on 2 years now at this point. We have to be able to trust ourselves and the rest of the dev team that we have, that the decisions we make are the ones that we are sure about. But there's always things that can be tweaked.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with Kickstarter games, if you like what you see, it will just get better, and everything's probably being changed to just better. So that's it.
Yep.
Shall we take a look at his other cards?
Oh, yeah.
So this is his skills, which from the beginning of the game, you'll play scenarios that will have victory conditions for both sides, right? If you're playing as the player, you'll have ways to advance the game. And as the game goes on, you'll achieve these skill cards, and you'll be able to choose from these two options, which is it's just a flip card. You'll choose one of these two for the remainder of the game, and you'll have to play with them. So ideally, you would look throughout all of them and have an idea of what you want to do with Beastman. In this case, for the green skills, we have Survival of the Fittest and Adrenaline Rush, which clearly show like what his identity is. With Adrenaline Rush, you have like a charge attack that you can use to save up actions so you can beat up enemies. And with Survival of the Fittest, you can help defend and attack with your Shadow Beast and Beastman on its own. Which also is important to mention, that you can not pick only from that identity, right? There are multiple ways to play the character. So if each side has different options, you can choose different ways to play it to have better results depending on the scenario, enemies, and friends that you have. So, yeah.
Anything to add, Michael, or should I go to the next one?
Leo summed that up pretty well. I mean, it's just in general here, you've got two different ways to build him from the initial start here. You can either make him very self-serving and have extra charge damage and attacks that make him more efficient, or you can pick Survival of the Fittest, which is going to help bolster himself and the Shadow Beasts. So already you're picking, do I want to make my minions stronger that he's summoning, or do I want to just put all that power directly into Beastman?
Yeah.
So for our second stage.
This is as you can see, the skills that you get are stronger and stronger. So the green ones, they're already a little bit better than what you have in only your character card. But now the yellow ones, they're more focused and they are better. So as you've seen before on the green one, both work relatively well and not very specific, while these ones are very much more centered towards a goal, right? With Pack Leader, you can move Beastman and another ally, usually you'll do with a Shadow Beast, to move towards an enemy, right? While Frenzy is where he is the warrior, so he's not helping any of his Shadow Beasts or friends, but he's just making a big attack with crit effects that help him be possibly one-shot someone.
Yeah, funny enough about subject to change and everything. We've already talked about like Frenzy is on our watch list that we might need to we've already talked about nerfing a little bit because it's potentially has the thing to become very potent. But that's just the type of game this is, where you're going to have those big explosive combat results, and you're going to be like, man, Beastman rolled really well and just took down He-Man in one go. But that's the type of thing that's just going to happen. It's just fun, right?
One in 1,000 times that will happen, but like.
But you'll remember it.
Yeah, you'll remember it, and also like the idea is that you'll be able to combat with him very easily if you get this path. So if in the first one you got like the charge attack and frenzy, now you can potentially just make a free attack, like move 2 for free and make a frenzy attack, which can then become a bonus action, which is incredibly powerful. So you're saving up actions while making a huge attack. While in Pack Leader, you'll be able to move easier through the board and be able to control better the area. So the way that you play Beastman, there's not a single way that is clearly the best, because it depends on the scenario. So if you're playing like scenarios that are more focused towards combat and brawling, probably getting Frenzy is better, but even like getting a Shadow Beast is also good. But in a scenario that you have to like pick and delivery things or get to certain objectives that are far from each other, then Pack Leader is probably your go-to ability.
Yep, and let's actually say you have a moment like mid-game where like your allies are like you've spread across the map and your allies are all of a sudden just getting beaten up. Well, Pack Leader can be used to just really quickly, pull pull your reinforcements over there with Beastman and some Shadow Beast.
Okay.
And for the last one.
And for the last one, and the red one, as Michael explained earlier, is where you get maxed power with Beastman. So if you're looking for his final form, this is it. Beastman is going to beat everyone up, either with himself, which he has Berserker Rage, which fulfills like the identity of his Berserker Warrior, like taking damage and dealing damage, which he can spend wounds to pay power, which then he can have crazy turns, just spending lots of wounds, even though you don't have many power, and be able to make massive damage with the attack boost, which gives you more die for each wound that you have taken, for each 2 wounds that you have taken, which is a pretty good skill because it's a passive. And you also have Beastmaster, which will help you have more bonus actions to activate Shadow Beasts, which is great because if you have multiples, you'll be able to use more of them proactively, while also having more chances to spawn more. So before you could only spawn 1 and activate 1 with the character card that you have, and with the last one, you'll be able to summon twice as much and activate twice as much, while also having the attack boost for the Shadow Beast with rolling +2 die, which is incredible because Shadow Beast we have not shown here, but it's an elite minion that has great, like, it attacks for 3 and it has a crit effect, so it's really good.
Yeah, they're a very big powerhouse. And I guess something else we kind of didn't talk about Beastman is that he has the highest health pool of any of the evil horde characters. Evil warrior characters.
Well, the core box at least.
Yeah, so the core box at least. But yeah, so he is just this big like tanky juggernaut. Well, he's not really tanky. He takes a lot of damage, but you're not going to want to leave him wounded because he can just build into things like Berserker Rage here, where he is just going to get more vicious the more damage he has taken.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as you can clearly see here, this is just an example of one character that has multiple build paths going through, and every single character, has things like this. I would actually consider Beastman to be probably one of the, I don't want to say the most plain, but definitely because controlling minions versus Berserker are 2 very distinct playstyles. But there are some even wider ones, across other characters as well.
Definitely.
To how they function. Like Man-at-Arms is one of my personal favorites because he can just go between, literally just like Rambo, Commando, just like I've got all these tons of ranged attacks and weaponry, or he can go full support and just start buffing everyone around him. Or you can go like the middle ground, which to me is my favorite thing, of being able to buff my allies and myself while still lobbing grenades and shooting stun beams and things like that. I mean, it's fun, just changing it up, just choosing a single different character to play can completely change your gameplay experience and how you approach everything. And again, in the core box, you've got 12 alone right there just to play with, and that's of course we will have a decent number throughout the campaign. It's going to be a big roller coaster of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is important also to note is that we always have paid very much attention to keep the theme in it, right? So, Beastman here, I think it's a good example because even though he has like good health, he's not exactly the tanky guy, but he has deep attacks and also controls the shadow beasts with like masterpiece. I really like Shadow Beastman because I think he's like, even though he's simple as Michael pointed out, I think he works well to the theme and it's a great like character to play with.
I know one of my favorite personal combos is playing with the Evil Warriors. Is they don't really have anyone that has any direct type of like healing effects on their team. Like the Heroic Warriors, they actually have Tila and Man at Arms to a lesser extent who have some like lesser like healing and restorative effects. On the Evil Warriors, not so much, but they do have Skeletor that can potentially build into Life Siphon, and I really just like Skeletor and Beastman here teaming up, where Beastman's just dealing himself a ton of damage to get all these cool effects and bonuses and just rampaging through the lines, and then you have Skeletor in the background just life siphoning off all of his enemies and just funneling that health directly back into Beastman to keep him going. The visuals of that alone are cool, and I really like the team combination of that as well. And then, okay, last little bit of combo. You combo in Trapjaw there with his grabber, who is literally just like shooting guys on the battlefield and pulling them into range for Beastman to just go up and start annihilating. It just creates these cool visual moments if you see all three of those characters doing their cool stuff, but as a group, like doing it together, it just creates that cool battle scene like you see playing out. And then, of course, the goody-goody He-Man just getting pummeled to death and everything.
Yeah.
But again, all those like cool images in your head as a kid just recreated here, and even newer ones.
And not only being pulled by Trapjaw to Beastman, but all his shadow beasts, which movement is an important aspect in the game. So if you get pulled into a place where you have Beastman and shadow beasts like around you, you're probably not getting out of there alive.
Just the cartoony like look to me of like Beastman just like hitting him with like a rock or something, and then all the shadow beasts with their big clubs just pounding him. The fact that we can show that versus the 80s, which everyone would have just been thrown or fallen down or tripped something. Can't show that much violence. So I guess.
Well, I see a lot of people asking for, will this guy be in the game, or that guy, and just as a general warning, we will not be confirming or disconfirming any characters that are not in the core box today. You will have to follow the campaign and find out for yourselves.
We have shown all the core box ones, right?
I guess we can give a list of the core box characters since we have at least talked about those, and we have had gameplay videos out. So going over the core box characters, we have for the Heroic Warriors, we have He-Man, who also has the option of He-Man on Battle Cat as his red skill. He summons down Battle Cat and gains an extra set of abilities and a new miniature based on mounting up there and teaming up. We have Man at Arms. We have Tila, we have Ram Man, we have Stratos, and Orko, of course, who has all of his lovely like Trollian magics that are super powerful but may not actually work as intended. And then for the Evil Warriors, we of course have Skeletor, Evil Lyn, Trapjaw, Beastman, Merman, and
Evil Lyn.
Evil Lyn. Sorry, we get through all the blank men, and then it's just like they all run together and I forget. So, I was gonna say,
and all of them will have a skill tree like this, right? But they will probably go in very different directions.
Oh yeah, yes. Like we said, every single character has the player version with their 6 skills across their 3 double-sided cards. They've got their controller version. They have their AI version. Ton of content in just the core box alone. And now, Helena, I'm going to put you on the spot. You said last time Orko was your favorite character. What is your favorite Evil Warrior?
Oh my God. I mean,
we said Triclops for the Evil Warriors too, like just in case I forgot him. But yes, Triclops is one of those 6. Okay, just to make sure.
I will have to say Skeletor. What I really like about Skeletor is that it would have been so easy to give him like this dark, mysterious voice, and they opted to do something so out of the box that we all remember it like vividly, and I think that's really bold and so cool.
Skeletor by him, like I've heard this statistic here, and it's on the internet, so it has to be true. Skeletor by himself is more popular than the entirety of the rest of the Masters of the Universe line combined. That is how iconic he is. Well, I mean, like, Skeletor is basically his own franchise, like, at this point. And that's cool. Now, I will say that the Skeletor on Panther model, which is, again, one of his red skills, and by the way, each of those mounts has their own controller version as well. So it's actually a little bit more than that. You have 6 characters per side in the core box, but technically on each of the controller sides as well, it actually is 7. So it's actually a little bit more, because you can just choose to play Skeletor basically on foot, or Skeletor on Panther as one of your controller characters, and the same thing with He-Man and Battle Cat. But I really like the sculpt for Skeletor on Panther is probably my favorite in the core box, with just how menacing Panther looks. Because Orko looks menacing in the fact that, like, there's something up about him.
He's levitating, man.
He is levitating. But
yeah, that's really cool.
That was one of the things. Like, we could have very easily just, okay, it's Skeletor and Panther and He-Man on Battle Cat. They could have just been like, yeah, okay, they put on their mounts, they get more vicious, they get some extra attack buffs. But we really went out of our way to make sure that there was a flavor difference between the two of them. So with He-Man, you summon Battle Cat, he's giving you a big AoE attack, he's giving you extra armor, but we just didn't want to take that same route for, like, Panther and Skeletor. So instead we went with that whole, like, menacing predator route with Panther, where he can actually cause negative status effects and to nearby enemies and cause them to disposition as, like, they just start running away in fear of him. It's a completely different approach to just the combat buffs that Battle Cat gives. So, that's just something that we wanted everything to just be dripping and oozing with its own unique personality.
Yeah.
Oh, and this is a question from the comments that I think is worth talking about. Is Battle Cat going to be Cringer or just Battle Cat? So,
have we shown that already or not?
We have talked about this a bit. There are some scenarios that utilize NPCs that are represented by tokens on the board, and some of those tokens are Prince Adam and Cringer, who are absolutely not, He-Man and Battle Cat. That's crazy. Yeah. Queen Marlena and King Randor. So one of my other personal favorite characters is just King Randor, specifically just because of the name. But there are scenarios that feature, all those characters, like one where you're escorting Queen Marlena off the battlefield. And of course, she is a fighter. She, first and foremost, she can fight back. Prince Adam and Cringer actually do not have any combat capabilities, but there is a scenario where, as the heroic warriors, you are trying to get them to a place on the battlefield where no one else can see them, so they can call down, I have the power, and transform into He-Man and Battle Cat. That's one of the narrative scenarios that we have. That's a lot of fun.
Or you're trying to find or recover the power sword and give it to them so they can.
Because Prince Adam surprisingly loses that power sword quite a number of times in various mediums.
That's true. Can you talk a little bit about that? I don't think you have expanded on that before. Like, the different scenarios, how do they impact the game? What kind of differences to gameplay do they bring?
Sure. Leo, would you like me to handle that one, or do you want to talk about
that? Usually, on each scenario, it has a way to win the game. It can be either by doing combat, so you're just focusing on, like, getting the best way to beat each other and, like, use your range, position well, or you're trying to save someone. For example, you have the scenario which you're escorting Queen Marlena, which you have to safely get her to another point on the board. Or you can either just go and try to find relics throughout the board. So depending on which scenario you are playing, the win conditions can vary. So you have either just for combat-based scenarios, you have scenarios that you're trying to get to a certain point, or just trying to move around. And the win condition in some scenarios change based on which side you're playing. So even though you're trying to get, like, the relics, if you're playing on the player side, the controller side is trying to prevent you from doing that and being able to delay your stay and to focus on his own game goal. So each scenario has its own thing. Can we say the number, Michael, on the card box?
No, we cannot, because we haven't actually determined that yet, but it will be at least 10, but we're aiming to actually have some more than that. But one of the important things to
A
know
lot
about
of
this,
variety.
a wide variety, yes.
Yes.
Because we're going to have, like, we basically have 3 different types of scenarios. We have the AI scenarios that are built around playing co-op versus AI. We have some narrative scenarios, which basically these sides are of the controller and the players are set by the scenario. Like in the Marlena scenario, the escort her, trying to get her off the map one, the controller will always need to be the heroic warriors. And then we have other scenarios that are open, so that either side can be whichever. Like we have a standard brawl scenario, which is just we want an excuse to go and fight each other. That the controller can be the heroic warriors or the evil warriors, and the player side can be whichever one they're not playing. Or I guess if you wanted to have that kind of battle royale thing, you could have evil warriors versus evil warriors. Nothing's stopping you there as well. So those are the 3 different, basically overarching types of scenarios. And then inside of that, you have your different scenarios with different objectives and things like that. And they're asymmetric as well. So, like, they're not necessarily always going to be the same goal for each side. Like in that Marlena scenario, the heroic warriors are trying to escort her off the battlefield. They win when she successfully, gets off the battlefield. And the evil warriors are actually trying to KO her and take her out. Now, that's a little more complicated than that because Marlena has her retinue of Eternian soldiers who are trying to protect her and can actually jump in the way of attacks. So you've got to kind of work your way through them as well. But so your gameplay dynamics are changing based on which side you are. Another scenario that we can talk about, because it's you'll see some gameplays of this coming up, is the relic, where the controller side has gotten control of this powerful relic, and they are trying to. They've secretly assigned it to one of their characters, and that character has to make it to the exit point on the battlefield. And that may sound similar to the Marlena one, but there's a whole other layer added to that via you've got 3 characters. The players don't know which one is controlling the relic, so you can do some really big fake-out plays as the controller. To make them think that, like, oh, Skeletor is the one holding the relic, but it turns out it was Evil Lyn the entire time. But in that same scenario, as that's going on, there are also these areas across the map that both sides are trying to go and collect, basically, these points of interest. And so whoever controls the most of those is going to score toward victory as well. And in addition to that, you've got a third of victory condition about KOing the enemies. And on that one there, it's the first one to achieve 2 of those 3 victory conditions. So, you could take the strategy of, like, I'm going to find which one of those characters is holding the relic, and I'm going to KO them, and I'm going to get that condition. Or you could completely ignore that one and just go for the relics and go for general KOs as well. So, you've got different options even within the same scenario there to play.
I see an interesting question from the audience. Do you think it will be possible for people to create their own scenarios?
Oh,
very much so.
We have absolutely designed this with that in mind, that people can make fan-made scenarios, and we expect you guys to. I mean, that's part of the fun. Is this is definitely the type of thing. Now, of course, this is all subject to licensing makes things tricky, but this is definitely the type of game where we would love to. We've created a big sandbox that can allow people to make their own custom scenarios, and I guess even custom characters if they're really dedicated enough to to add to this, because this is Masters of the Universe. This is also the power system. This is meant to be a kind of a universal system that we could potentially, with the success of this, expand out into other areas later as well.
Yeah, to explain a little bit, and when you get the core box, you'll get a huge hexagonal board, which is blank, so it's like a blank canvas, and you'll have like layouts that you can place with terrains and ruins and rooms and things like that, which then you can build your own scenarios. When we give our scenarios for you to play, it will have be layout in the scenario like book, but if you want to create your own, you can just make anything that you would like.
Yep. That's one of the beauties of the game board and everything, is that we, as Leo said, we've essentially given you a big blank canvas, and the customization, everything comes from the massive amount of overlays that we provided that represent the different topography of Eternia. So you've got like hills, boulders, forests. The ruins are my absolute favorite, because deadly plants and boulders that you can throw at each other. But as I said, the ruins are probably my favorite, because there's not a lot of just like kind of standing structures on Eternia outside the major cities, but there's tons of ruins spread throughout like the wilds of Eternia. So we've given you basically a full set of, I believe it's between, I'm not going to quote exact numbers, but between 8 and 11 different ruins buildings that can use that. So like, don't think that the entire game is just taking place in like the jungles and the forests and these like giant rocky craggy areas, even though like, yes, a lot of the source material, that's pretty much what a lot of Eternia was giant, maybe copy and paste backgrounds of the same scene over and over again on a loop. Maybe not. But here we've given you the option so you can like the relic scenario takes place in a giant ruins, and we actually have constructed some scenarios that literally all of the areas are linked together. It's like this really cool circular ruins layout that all the tiles have connected.
That one's
the
my
overlays
favorite.
have connected together. Yeah, and there's this big cool courtyard in the center. I really like the design of that one. Like Leo made that one, and it was really cool just visually seeing it. Like, when you see it laid out. And that's one of the cool things is like, again, it is a big blank canvas. That's probably the best way that we could have described it there, as Leo said, is we've given you a blank canvas and all the paints and the tools to construct your own scenarios with all the cool things around there. I like also having a big garden of deadly plants, which are these, well, as the name implies, if you get too close to them, they start attacking things. So I just like the botanical garden of a bunch of forests filled with just these deadly plants that, anyone gets near, they start attacking.
Another question here about the scenarios. Are all of them soloable?
Soloable. Yeah. So to answer that, we have specific scenarios that are meant to be used with the AI deck that are built around like special rules for the AI and using the deck and the characters. Technically, any scenario can function if you apply the AI rules, but some of them, like we're going to have some that are very specifically built around the fact that they are AI controlled. Like the brawl scenario, the very basic one where you're just trying to fight each other, that one would work just fine if you're using the AI rules. Another one like the relic, where it's more complex, where you're going to have to like have a secret character like assigned a relic, and there's matters about outsmarting your opponent. That one is, you could play that with the AI, but it probably is not going to function that well because it's not built around it. You really need to have a player brain around that scenario to really make it an enjoyable experience. Otherwise, the AI might make some weird choices when like a player would not have done that. But again, we are making specific scenarios based around the AI rules for that specific reason. But otherwise, with the other scenarios, it's just kind of going to be having those things to kind of use your own judgment for when you're reading them. Like, okay, is this recommended that I play this AI? Probably not, because their decisions are going to come up that an AI are just not going to be able to account for.
Yeah, but all of them are able to play solo. Some of them are just focused storytelling. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think this will have to be our final question for today. We are reaching our time limit, but I chose one for the future. I love people who are so excited about the game. They are already planning for the future, even though the Kickstarter is not even out yet. Like in Zombicide, will you release new scenarios online after the game is released?
Helena, I've got to veto that as being our last question, because we actually kind of talked about that in our last in the last comment, where the very like honest answer there is that's going to be subject to like licensing things, because that's going to become very tricky, because everything we do has to be like crossed with Mattel, and I don't see that changing. So that means anytime we would do online scenarios or something like that, that's another part of that process. And like with Zombicide, that's our own IP, so we release new scenarios to that every Friday. I don't think Mattel would probably want us to have to approve scenarios every Friday for the next Infinite. But that's always something we can discuss. But
yeah, probably not as frequent, and not guaranteeing anything, not promising anything. But who knows if it's something that is much requested.
Yep, if this turns out to be insanely popular, and we can always see what happens. But unfortunately, right now we can't really commit to anything like that.
So the answer for now is too early to tell.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so since you vetoed it as our last question, let's see if I can pick another one to wrap this up.
Leo, what is your favorite song and dance on the internet?
Well, Almeida,
Perfect.
Almeida chooses a question, I'll perform to you. I cannot sing it, or otherwise we would be being like prosecuted.
Cease and desist.
Yes, this is definitely my favorite dance. If you don't know this, you should look into it. It has something to do with He-Man.
If you know, you know.
Yeah.
If you know, you know. Well, I think that's the perfect way to wrap this up.
Okay.
What
Okay.
could possibly follow this? I got
Yes.
nothing.
You can't top this off, definitely.
I can't
not.
stop this off.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for joining me today, and thank you all for watching us and for joining our virtual expo. This is the last panel. I hope you all had fun. Remember, the box is only available until tomorrow, so make sure to check that out. And any final comments, Michael and Leo?
Well, tune in our Kickstarter. It's pretty soon. You should get one. He-Man is going to be very good. The power system is very nice. If you haven't seen, I recommend for you to see our we have some play videos already that people have done with He-Man. Everything is subject to change, so we're just getting better. So if you like He-Man or if you like our game, Simon, the miniatures are very cool. They're just upsizes this game. So if you're not getting it, you're missing out. So yeah.
I really feel that if you are a He-Man fan, that you are going to be in for just quite the ride with this campaign, because we made it through an hour of this panel, and we talked about so much cool stuff that we didn't even mention our gigantic Castle Grayskull at any point during this. That was how much like we couldn't fit in the amount of cool stuff, and this is literally just the tip of the Grayskull here, because we
can't
have
say much things, like.
Yeah, we there's so much that we want to talk about, well, we can't even talk about. But in the upcoming weeks, and especially during the campaign, it's going to be a nonstop, just roller coaster. Leo,
Yeah.
do you have our moral lesson for today's panel?
Well, think a bit. if you're going to dance in a panel, I guess that's it.
In today's panel, we learned the importance of self-confidence as Leo danced in front of the entire audience. What times in your life have you been peer pressured into doing something? Always remember that peer pressure can be a valuable tool, but always think on your feet. Until
Yes.
next time.
And with that, we say our goodbyes. See you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for showing up.